Hi, it's Jamie Smart here with another Clarity Pro case study interview. And I'm really, really pleased to have my next guest with us because she's a leadership and business coach. She's worked extensively in the large corporate domain and continues to work with corporates and entrepreneurs and leadership teams and CEOs of companies and this sort of thing. And she's bringing the principles into her coaching and into her group work in that domain. And so I'm really looking forward to speaking with Sarah Locke. Sarah, great to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for asking me.
And the place I like to start these is to ask you to just say a bit about your work and what first sparked your interest in these principles.
Well, even just preparing for this, because I said to you, I looked at a couple of what the other guys had talked about, and it was just really interesting to track back the journey for me, because it's been an interesting time leaving corporate and setting up my own practice. And I did that in September 2017. And, looking back at how we first met and how did I become aware of these things called principles. So it's been really interesting to look back at that time for me. So even thank you for that. That's been quite a treat. So I attended a couple of workshops with Kimberly Hare, who you know really well.
Dear friend of mine.
Yeah. And that was the first introduction. And she talked about you. And I'm somebody who's naturally curious. People talk about me being a bit of a learning monster. So I wanted more of this stuff. And that led me to join your Glasswing program. So I did the 12-week Glasswing, was fascinated by the name and why you came up with that name. And that pulled me in itself. I remember
that is why I came up with that name, by the way.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that just spoke to me, and it was perfectly timed because I was thinking about leaving my corporate job where I was an executive coach. So, I trust these things, that things come to you and it's all energetic, and you seem to come at the right time, and you supported my transition from corporate coach to having my own practice, which seemed really daunting at the time. Did the 12-week program with you. That obviously led me to have contact with lots of other great coaches who were also working through their understanding of the principles. And it just went from there. And then you go to a 3Ps conference, and it just goes from there. So it's been a great few years.
It's quite a journey, isn't it? And what's the nature of kind of how you're sharing the principles with people in your work?
Well, it's interesting because being transparent, initially, I didn't feel like I could. And I come from a background where it's tools and techniques. You might hear some people refer to it as the outside in. And, I was pretty addicted to that stuff. And I remember actually in one of my last corporate workshops, a coach came in and they were talking about this idea. I think it was one of Michael Neill's books, and the group were kind of resisting it. And there was this idea that 90% of it is inside, but there's this 10% that isn't. And that was almost like a reassurance for people that they didn't have to fully let go, that their whole experience was being generated within, that they could still blame a bit of it in the outside world. And it just didn't sit quite right with me. And, I didn't feel like I got caught for a moment of, I knew I couldn't be left in this world anymore with the tools and the techniques, but I knew I wasn't ready yet to coach anyone else in it because I hadn't seen enough for myself. I was still very confused. I was still very in my head. And being transparent, there was a period of time where I was like, I can't go back, but I can't go forward.
Yeah, sort of a foot in both camps, which is a tough place to be. It's funny you say that, Sarah. One of the most crucial kind of shifts that I see for people is there's what I call conversation A and conversation B. And conversation A is, does it really work inside out 100% of the time, no exceptions? Is that real? Are we really living in the experience of the principle of thought 100% of the time, no exceptions? And just I encourage people to get crystal clear on whether they're a yes or a no to that, and get settled, do whatever they need to settle that, because then we get to move into a completely different conversation, which is, okay, given that that's how it works, what are we going to do? And that shift seems to unlock all kinds of power. It's why in Clarity Pro, that's where we start. We start with that question, the 100% inside out nature of it. Do whatever we need to do to get crystal clear on it. So then what happened?
Yeah, totally. I mean, if you're still hanging around in the 90-10% brigade, you can't move forward, can you?
It's tough.
I mean, I remember specifically coming to one of your workshops down in London. I mean, I'm Scottish based, but I travel a lot with work, and I just felt a pull that I needed to meet you in person. I hadn't done live stream really before, but intuitively I felt I need to meet you. We didn't have a personal connection at that point. And I remember, I probably a feeling of being all over you a little bit in those first few days. And we went for a walk at lunchtime, and we just walked around the park, and we fell into a lovely connection, and we just talked, and the conversation emerged, and we went deeper into this. And I remember being sat there, you might not remember it, but I had a massive pink A4 notebook at the front. I was at the front because obviously I needed to be at the front. And I pretty much transcribed the whole 3 days, because it was all about, I was still really in that old way of, if I can understand it intellectually and I can write it all down. And I think we did a session where I came up to the front and you live coached me. And I watched back that video with a little bit of horror, for myself, not for you. But just like how differently I saw things still then. And there was almost this sense of looking back of wanting to get it right, which is a programming for me, little Sarah wanting to get it right, that there's a right answer. And the moment that I fell out of that I didn't need to get it right, that there isn't a right or wrong, that this is innate, it's how we are. Look at a small child, I mean, to see the system working beautifully. Because sometimes when you're around this stuff, I mean, you did a post about the 3 Ps police and it made me laugh, that there's sometimes this sense of you're getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And the thing that I would say about you particularly is I've never felt that with you. I've never felt corrected. Like you've always met me where I was in my journey with this, knowing that it just unfolds, and letting that happen and just relaxing into that, that I'll see what I see when I'm ready to see it, and trusting that, and not you forcing your insights onto me, or that I need to be at a certain stage by a certain place, or Sarah, you're just not getting it yet. I've never heard that from you.
Well, it's so clear to me, Sarah, that the thing that is going to help each of us is our own insights, and that's the only thing that's going to make a difference. So I can do whatever makes sense to me to support that in someone else, just like you do with your clients. It's what they see for themselves that's going to make the difference. So what's the nature of the kind of impact you're seeing with your, having been on this journey and seen it gone from being in that place of, well, actually, before I get into the results you're seeing, what was the journey like from kind of being in confusion and being in that 90%, 10% space to where you are now? Like, because I know that doesn't happen in a single leap. It's kind of step by step.
Yeah, and I think even just sharing this, it might just help other people listening, is that I went wide, anybody and everyone that would speak to me about this stuff. And what I learned from that, with the greatest respect, is people are all at their different part of the journey with it.
Yeah.
And actually that got me really confused, because people are saying to me, that's wrong. There is no inside out. Like, why are you even talking about inside out? And it just got me more confused. And the more I got in my head, the less I wanted to go near it, because it just felt it was an exam and I wasn't passing it.
Yeah.
And we keep gravitating back to each other and kind of dipping in each of that. And we've had some private coaching. And I think I've just learned to, again, it's coach at the level that you've seen. And what I stopped doing was trying to make people get it when I was around people that weren't trying to make you get it.
Yeah.
You know? So that influenced how I coached. I loosened up, relaxed into it. I didn't need people to be at a certain point because I do intensives like you do, and I learned that from you. Intensives is me, deeply over a few days. And I lost that urge to, by day 2 afternoon, I have to have them at a certain place, which has been very helpful, clearly, in my coaching.
Well, and it's so cool to see what you're doing with this understanding. What are the kind of results you're seeing with people? You can take executives through, 3-day intensives and so on. What kind of things are happening?
Yeah, the analogy that I have with corporate clients, having been in it as well, is that you've got this traditional model of like 6 sessions, 90 minutes, and takes 6 months. And this is what I love about intensives, and I would never known about it if it wasn't for meeting you and observed the coaching intensive that you did with Andy that you unpacked, which was just, brilliant for me. I kind of felt like I'd found my place. People overuse the word, but they say it genuinely. These are corporate, high-flying, successful men a lot of the time, saying it's changed my life. I'm now... And when they say that, they mean, because they're earning big money, but they're not happy. They're not fulfilled. They've got all the stuff in the outside world, but there's something missing, and they realize that they can't fill it with stuff. And the frequent feedback I get is I just feel more connected to myself. I feel more connected to my family as a result. I'm happier. I feel more peaceful. My thinking is clearer, and of course that is going to have massive impact in their work. But people often say it's not rare for someone to say this has changed my life, and they mean it genuinely.
And how is that for you? Like, how does it feel to be seeing that kind of impact with your clients?
It's a massive privilege. I think because I get coached and I get the vulnerability that requires, because the mask is off and it's open and it's honest, and we're exploring things together. I just really appreciate that I'm with someone on a bit of their journey. It's just a huge privilege to get to walk with someone as what we talk about, come home.
Yeah, I love it. That's so cool. And actually, you've just reminded me of something, which is one of the things we've got in Clarity Pro is something you helped me create. So you and I were doing some one-to-one together. You were preparing for a workshop that you were doing. And our deal was I would coach you through the preparation for that principles-based talk and session. And we would record it and we would upload it for the other Clarity Pro members so that they could see the structure of going through that. Well, that actually, I need to thank you for that, because that's now a pattern that I've repeated. I did one just this past month on just doing a talk on the principles. How do you prepare to give a talk on the principles? And I'm going to do more of those. So I really like that way of creating value for people, sort of, because I think for a lot of people, actually seeing how you can go through preparing to do something like that is, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, a video is worth 100,000 words. What I wanted to ask you is, what was your experience of that, and how did that support you in doing that? Like, what if it supported you? How did you find it?
Oh yeah, for sure. We were doing confidence. I was running a session with almost 100 leaders in a bank. And I knew I was going to approach it differently, but it still wasn't right, because there's still this idea that confidence is out there. And when I have confidence, then I'll go do stuff. Yeah. And it wasn't an easy journey because I was working with a group of stakeholders. 2/3 of them really were like, absolutely, we get it that it's not in the outside world, but one of them just wasn't letting go of that. Anyway, fast forward, we did the session. At one point I was ready to step back because I was so clear that if they couldn't feel comfortable that the way that I was going to do it that we discussed was aligned for them, then I said, well, I'm not your coach. I need to step back. I was so clear at that point that I couldn't take work that was incongruent with what I'd seen. I just ethically couldn't do it. But anyway, we went forward, we did the session, and the feedback was phenomenal, just in terms of people saying the thing that I thought I wasn't going to go do because I thought I needed to be in a feeling of confidence, I'm now going to go do it because I now get that I don't need to be in a feeling of confidence to go do it. I should have some competence, like that distinction that we made between competence and confidence was really important. And what I would say to anybody is that not only did we just design the session together, like my understanding developed because we did it in that collaborative way. It would have been easy for you to just do it for me. But because we went through that process, I still had a bit of letting go to do as well. Because, I come from the corporate world where we're addicted to tools and techniques. And even though you think you've let go of it, you have a session with you and it goes up a level. So I look at confidence completely differently now, and I coach completely differently on it. And it's amazing how many people I coach on confidence. Really quickly.
Let me ask you this, Sarah. How does it feel different to be working in this way compared to how you used to work like 3 years ago before you left corporate?
Oh my goodness. I mean, even on a practical level, like I'm not doing a ton of prep. Like, I've got to get all my toolkit and my ninja moves ready for coaching, which would be in itself make me busy up there. Yeah. My prep is getting a good night's sleep, being grounded, making sure that I'm regularly being coached and supervised, that I'm working on me, so that I arrive quiet on the inside and relaxed. And I absolutely love it. I don't feel that I'm performing. I mean, corporate's a different beast. Corporate, it's a different dynamic because you've got to be seen to get the result, and that can force, an unhelpful behavior. In my own practice, it's not the same. So it's just different anyway, but just more relaxed, more at ease. And funnily enough, that translates into results. It's like I'm not trying to get the client to have an insight, get a result. Like I trust the process. Like I know that when they get quiet, like we're made for insight. Like I know that as true.
Yeah,
and I trust that.
That's so great to hear. Sarah, I'm as you know, I'm doing this to promote our Clarity Pro membership program. So guys, if you're watching, if this is resonating with you and you want to find out more, head over to jamiesmart.com/Clarity Pro. And if it's a good fit for you, we'd love to have you in the group. We've got an amazing community and amazing people to connect with, and really, really powerful, valuable content to help you take the next step with sharing this understanding and getting it out there, having this kind of impact with your clients. Sarah, thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Great to have you with us. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.